shout out to Bob, man. All right, everybody. Good afternoon here. Hold on, let me check on the other stream here. Come on, folks. There we go. I think we got rocking and rolling here. All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Nick Slavic. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavic Painting and Restoration Company, also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It is a weekly live Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and TikTok show where we talk about the life of a master craftsperson and also paint business entrepreneur. And focus of today's show is paint coverage tests. So I take my job as the master craftsperson of this company very seriously. I come up with all the standard operating procedures, all the playbooks, and I test all the coatings, all the systems to make sure that when I send my guys out to do a job, when I send my estimators out to make a promise to a client, we can actually follow through on that consistently every single day. And I don't want to set up my young guys for failures, all my painters. I want proven coatings, proven tools, proven systems. So today we're going to tackle one of the hardest sort of things in painting businesses right now as far as the painting goes, which is coverage stuff. First, let's get to a couple bits of housekeeping. The PCA has just released all of their fall events. The Painting Contractors Association is a 142-year-old nonprofit that serves to educate the industry just like we do here. We have aligned values in that. There are events in San Diego, there's events in Nashville, there's events in Asheville, North Carolina. And of course, next year's expo is gonna be in New Orleans, Louisiana. This will be the 10-year anniversary of my membership. And 10 years ago, I went to my first expo ever in New Orleans. And I had one of the greatest times ever walking the historic French Quarter, just seeing little cafes and bars and coffee shops and just imbibing all that history. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. So also, I got to give a shout out to Brunt, man. I know you guys have been seeing all those Brunt commercials around here like this. Eric from Brunt got a hold of me and he sent me these awesome boots, right? And they are not kidding. They are the most comfortable boots I've ever worn. And from the second you put these bad boys on, they feel like you've worn them forever. Awesome. No hot spots, no tough leather, things like that. They look awesome. These are my favorite style of boots too, kind of the mock toe, kind of the ring around the front, a nice cream sole, good leather. These suckers are the definition of comfortable. So Eric, shout out my friend from Brunt. Appreciate you very much. And thanks for doing that. And without further ado, let's get to this. If you guys have any questions about standard operating procedures, playbooks, top coats, primers, tools, anything else, this is the place for it, guys. Okay, so whenever we do a test in the company, and let me just make sure. All right, so good, everybody can hear us. So when we end up doing a test, we do tests for a reason. We don't just randomly do this. I want to further my own knowledge, further the knowledge of my painting company, and further the knowledge of the industry. Here's a scenario. In the 90s, everything was tan, hunter green, and red. maybe that Tuscan yellow, give or take. We got into the early 2000s and people started going a little bit gray, grayish, cooler colors, things like that. 2010s, give or take, kind of same thing. We're seeing the trend of grays and cool colors. Now, firmly in the 2020s, we're seeing whites and off-whites. Does this ring a bell with anybody? So then the problem is we've done all these crazy dark colors over the years. Oh, let's see, I'm screen mirrored. You see this bad boy over here, this dark color? This is a combination of white paint, gray paint, and black paint that I mixed up in the shop to give a rich, deep, kind of like, saturated color as a base on my entire test bedroom right here, so that we could test out one of the hardest painting process. This is the simplest painting process, just painting walls, right? 17 steps, prep, 2 coats, deep prep. But the problem is when you go from drastic color changes, dark to light, light to dark, you run into coverage issues. And a lot of the times it's like, well, hey, just throw on a 3rd coat. That's fine, but that doesn't always work. You can say, well, throw on a primer and then 2 top coats, or a primer and 1 top coat. But which primer? How long do you let it dry? What tools and stuff do you use? Those are the things that I test here in my company. When something only comes up once or twice a year, I typically don't go deep into testing and all this other stuff. But when something occurs very often, there is not a single week where we don't have 1 or 2 occurrences where we have to trigger our 3rd coat cost trigger in our company. So we have a stated line in our contract. We have a stated SOP that the guys, whenever we go from dark to light, light to dark, they'll do a coverage test. First thing, they'll cut a corner of the house while they're prepping. They'll cut another coat over that later on to see if it covers. And then we report back to the client right away to tell them if they need a 3rd coat or not. A 3rd coat is 35% extra on the job. We typically tell the clients the first morning of a job. Now, you may ask, why don't we just charge them for a 3rd coat right away? Because I'm trying to save my clients money. I don't want to charge them for a 3rd coat if I don't have to. The services that we offer are not cheap anyway. We're a professional company with professional humans that can guarantee a product, right? So I'm not just willy-nilly ask clients for 35% more. We'll actually lose some sales, possibly lose the trust. But we do inform the clients that we have a 3rd coat coverage sort of thing there, and we'll report back. And what typically triggers that is dark to light, light to dark. We have less issues going dark colors over light because of the nature of the pigments and the coverage and things like that. We have way more issues going from dark to light. Excuse me, did I say that right? We don't have that many issues when we go light to dark because of the paint. I think I said that right. More issues show up when we go dark to light. So here's a scenario. We're getting a lot of reports back from our painters that 3rd coat is kind of still a little bit iffy, give or take. This will be about the 3rd time in my professional career that I've done a systematic scientific test to figure out what the SOP should be. I have been doing this for 34 years. I've owned this business for 18. I am a firm believer that nothing should ever need more than 3 coats. Golden oak trim to painted trim, primer, 2 top coats. Dark walls to light, primer, 2 top coats. Light walls to dark, primer, 2 top coats. Not a big deal. And exteriors are not an issue. We can go very, very drastic color changes because it's flat paint, it's rough textures, and it's flat paint, super thick coverage over the end. This is less important to me for exteriors. We typically don't run into that. Mainly, this is a wall project because anytime we spray cabinets and trim, by the nature of spraying, you lay more paint on and you get better coverage, right? If we were to spray the walls, we'd get better coverage, but we don't spray walls. That's not our SOP and playbook. We want to brush and roll so that they're easier to touch up and they have a uniform film on there. If you ever need to touch them up, you don't want to have to bring out a sprayer and remask the entire house. So let me walk you through the scenario here. In the most scientific way possible, you want to have a control and you want to only limit one variable. So what I do is this. We have a Purdy Pro Extra brush. The new Spirex have just been released. We haven't yet, I've dabbled them with the craftspeople in my company, but we haven't yet incorporated them company-wide. The standard operating procedure is this brush right here. It's a 2.5-inch straight cut Pro Extra Elasco. So I'm using the same brush that I spec'd years ago, the same brush that my craftspeople go out there and do. We use a 1/2-inch White Dove nap roller. I use the same thing that my people do. We have a Purdy pole. We have a Sherwin-Williams tray. The top coat is Sherwin-Williams Emerald Matte. We only allow 1 top coat in my company. We use ultra premium paint. It covers better, as you can see, and it gives a great shine. It's more durable, things like that. I do not let people do a good, better, best. I do not let people pick shine. I use ultra premium paint. We use matte on the walls. Occasionally, we'll let a client use flat if they want, but we just kind of tell them it's the same sort of effort, but you just get less durability out of the paint. So now what you're seeing here is as closely to a scientific test as I can do. We have 4 samples up on my wall here. The base coat, what I did back here, is Sherwin-Williams Emerald Matte. So this does have some shine on it, right? So I did the whole base, 2 coats of this on the back, and then we tested 4 separate scenarios. This block right here, you can see this, the yellow here is no primer at all. This is just straight top coats, 2 top coats right here. As we go this way, we're using the same primer, but this is an old painter's trick. You can actually tint primers, right? And not just pink, yellow, green, blue, purple, things like this. You can tint it more white than it is white. So an old painter's trick back in the day, if a gallon of primer could take 12 ounces of tint, which Sherwin-Williams Pro Block can, you can just dump white tint in there. Back in the day, it used to be called KX tint. Now, every sort of tint, all the generations of tint, all the manufacturers have their different names, but they do make a white tint, and it has titanium dioxide in it, which theoretically makes it more opaque. And that is free, right? When you go to the paint store, they don't charge you for that. So what we have here, Sherwin-Williams has consolidated a lot of their primers into Pro Block water-based and Pro Block oil. Pro Block oil is in the red can. Pro Block water is in the green can. There's Prep Right, there's all-purpose latex, all this other stuff. It's now consolidated into here because about 1.5 years, 2 years ago, we switched over to Emerald. That was a change in the SOP. Now all these primers are getting consolidated into these. I thought, you know what? Maybe the guys are experiencing something in the field that I haven't before. And instead of me coming down on the guys saying, come on guys, 3 coats, it never takes more than 3 coats, I owe them a test of the primers and owe them the test of the top coats like that in that combination. I've never done a test with those before. This section, no primer. This is the previous top coat, 1 top coat of Emerald Matte, 2 top coats of Emerald Matte. And you'll see I stepped everything out. This is all 1 coat of Emerald. This is all 2 coats of Emerald down below. This first primer is Sherwin-Williams Pro Block water base, no tint at all. Straight out of the can, crack it open, put it on the wall. And you can see the coverage up here. Sherwin-Williams Pro Block with 4 ounces of white right here. You can see that up here. No tint, 4 ounces of tint. And then you go to 12 ounces of tint. This is maximum amount of tint. You will fill this can up with white tint on there. And the most interesting thing that I saw is actually, if I'm gonna be honest, I'm seeing, let's call it 85% coverage, 80 to 85% coverage here. We're seeing 85, 86, 87% coverage here. And I would say this is actually back down to 82, 83% coverage right here. So very interesting finding. In all of the other tests in my professional life, what I've found is that the more white tint you put in a primer, the more opaque it gets and the better coverage you get. But objectively, and maybe it looks different when you guys are standing way back from this, but in my eye right here, I'm actually seeing less coverage as you put more tint in. The tints change, things change, the primers change, things like that. What we do know, like when you take a can of a deep base paint and tint it all the way black, all that tint that you put in there changes the paint. It slows down the drying, it lessens the coverage. So sometimes, back in the old days, you used to be able to put 12 ounces of white in a can of primer. It made it more opaque. It was noticeably more opaque, sometimes even double the opaqueness, right? Now what I'm seeing is you're actually, if I'm being honest, I'm seeing a lessening of the quality of the coverage of this primer right here. Now, in here, standard operating procedure is always have 2 fans going, and I gave each coat a half an hour to dry. So this is an accelerated pace. This is faster than the technical data sheets say, but it simulates how fast that I paint a bedroom to the standard, the high standard of in our company. So I wanted to do it in the way that I do it so that I can relay to the people that, yes, you could say, you're supposed to wait an hour. Well, then wait an hour, and I can guarantee you're going to get even better results than this, if any. But I pushed it as far as I can. So if something goes wrong, then you know that we just give it more drying time. So we have no primer at all. We have primer with no tint, primer with 4 ounce tint, and then primer with 12 ounce tint. And then half an hour in between coats. And then I applied 1 top coat. My tape's not sticking too well. That's the delicate stuff there. 1 coat of Emerald, 2 coats of Emerald. And as you go through here, you're seeing a beautiful uniform texture like this, even cuts here. And again, if I'm being honest, I'm seeing 100% coverage here, I'm seeing 100% coverage here, and I'm seeing 100% coverage here. For me, if I'm being very honest with this and objective, I'm seeing no difference in any tintable primer versus just regular primer. So this tells me that I have 2 theories here. right? Things that we were testing, and we're only testing one variable, priming, and then different sorts of tints in the primer, but we're only using one primer to limit the variabilities, the variables. What we're trying to figure out here is, when my guys say we need more than 3 coats, are they being honest? And I'm saying right here, based on my control stuff here, I'm not seeing any need for more than 3 coats. In fact, that 2-coat coverage is about a 99%, 98% coverage with just 2 coats of emerald. And I should say, guys, this is ultra white. This is straight out of the can. This is the hardest color to cover. I should have mentioned that earlier. This is Sherwin-Williams Emerald Ultra White, straight out of the can, pre-mixed, everything else. This is not tinted. This is not creamy. This is not Chantilly lace. Any tint in those off-whites will actually help it cover. I picked the hardest covering white that you can possibly get. So what I'm seeing here is about 95, 96, 97% coverage. One more coat over this should do it easily. That would be 3 coats. I'm seeing 100% coverage, and what you want to do is look at the cut versus the roll area. Cut versus roll, cut versus roll. And I'm seeing 100% coverage. This is the standard, all 3 things. So now what this tells me is that that old painter's trick of tinting a bunch of primer, at least with the control groups that we're doing right here, doesn't matter. This primer, the Sherwin-Williams Pro Block water-based primer, is good enough without tint. In fact, it'll probably dry quicker, covers just as well, and then you get great top coat coverage. And I will say this, guys, if you've ever applied premium emerald matte over a primed dry surface, it goes on like Teflon. It covers twice as well as emerald over emerald. It's a wonderful, like tactile experience. It's a wonderful effort. So I learned 2 things at the end of this test, which is the SOP has always been, when we go light to dark, dark to light, a coat of primer and 2 top coats. And what I also learned is that I'm not seeing any objective reason to tint our primer. We can go regular Sherwin-Williams Pro Block water-based primer, 2 coats of emerald, and if we follow this is the most extreme test. We're going nearly green-black to perfectly high white, ultra white here. And if we saw any deviations in that, then they would say, well, okay, well, let's try something else out, try a different primer, try a different, top coat, things like that. But in all of these things here, this tells us that it really doesn't matter if you tint it or not. If you prime it, you're going to get perfect coverage. Now, the inquisitive mind might ask, well, Nick, why don't we do just 3 coats of emerald? I will say this. You ever see the price tag for this stuff? Even with a contractor discount, it is expensive. We can get Pro Block primer, which covers way better than emerald for about 1/3 of the cost, give or take. It goes on easier. It's more readily available. There's no tinting. It dries faster. And as you can see, this is 1 coat of emerald right over 1 coat of emerald. This is a coat of primer over emerald here too. Covers pretty well, guys. It covers pretty well. So you might as well go with the Pro Block God, that is a hard thing to say. Pro Block water-based primer. And the SOP stands in our company now that anytime we have one of these things, one of these huge color changes, it's 1 coat of primer, 2 top coats. Now, the next test of all this stuff, I don't worry about going from light to dark because the tint in the paint inherently makes it easier to cover. You may say, well, what if this was opposite? What if you have white walls and you're going to that dark color? This is easy. Now you have 2 choices. P1, 2, 3, 4, 5 primer tint, and P1, 2, 3, 4, 5 just indicates it's gray. P1 is the lightest, P5 is the darkest, and you're basically working with that, 1 to 2 ounces on the P1 side, all the way up to 12 ounces of black, lamp black colorant on the P5 side. That'll give you a deep, rich gray. And that's what we would do for this here. We don't need a specially tinted one. If we were doing yellow, orange, red, purple, something like that, like a jewel tone, a vibrant, what I would then do is say, like you take the red color or this green color or something. Well, we'll use red. If you take red, actually, you know what? Here, let me give you an example. The 3M high-tack tape like this. If they wanted this room this color, what I would do is figure out what color match this is, or the Sherwin-Williams color card equivalent, work up the formula for a gallon, and then I'd throw up a gallon of Pro Block water-based primer in the tinter, and I would do the corked formula, and I would just keep pumping it in until it gets that color. I would put about a gallon in first, mix it, and if it's super light, I'd put another gallon in it worth of tint in there, another gallon worth of tint. The secret with that is you want to bump up that color to get as close to this as possible, but you don't want to go deeper. Then you run into coverage issues. So that is the next old painter's trick that we typically do, but you're going to have to ask your paint store to specifically do that, to say, give me the color for this red, this fire engine red I'm doing. Get the 1 gallon tint colorant, throw that in the primer, shake it up, see what happens. If it ends up being a super light, milky pink color, throw another gallon and throw another gallon in. But take that deep tint primer that allows you to put 12 ounces in to do that. So, all right, let me scroll through, see if we got any questions here. Got plenty of people watching today. Appreciate all you guys on this snowy day here. It's kind of snowmageddon up here. Boa noite for all my friends down in Brazil. Appreciate you guys so much. Seth Hofstetter, do you have different production rate expectations for your employees at different levels? So here's the deal. When somebody is brand new apprentice in my company, they have a couple tests to get through. At 3 months, they need to actually paint the walls in this room to our standard in 4 hours or less to be employed. At 6 months, they need to do a set of kitchen cabinets to our standard under budget, and then they keep being employed. After that, the standard hourly budgets apply. So then after that, they go to a standard compensation plan where if they want to raise, they're rated on 2 things that they control, their attendance and then those hourly job budgets like that. And there's certain metrics in the company. We meet yearly. I update them actually every week on where they stand with that stuff. So they have to work more hours, get to do better on jobs, things like that. But there's a standard in the company, and I basically give them a stoplight system. If they want to raise and a bonus, they got to get 75% of their jobs under budget, and they need to average 40 hours a week. To get just a cash bonus at the end of the year, there's the lesser grade down that. You could miss a few hours, you can miss a few more jobs, and then potential to lose your job gets a red light there. And if they miss a whole bunch of hours and perform really poorly on jobs, they're actually they may lose their job at the end of the year. So give or take. That's how we do it. But I update them every week, which is good. So Mr. Adkins, good to see you. Let's see. Chris Harada. Oh, how's it going, man, on YouTube? All right, everybody. Well, here we have it. The objective final test of coverage. If you're having trouble with paint covering, the final recommendation, what we do in my company is it's always going to be 1 coat of Pro Block water-based primer, always 2 coats of emerald over the top. If we go dark to light, we're just going to use straight white out of the can. There is no need, evidently by these tests, to do any tinting of it white to make it more opaque. If we go light to dark, we will either do P12345 gray primer in there, 1 bump below the actual color, never deeper, always lighter, or we'll do a jewel tone color. We'll try to approximate the tint of the top coat for those bright colors, the yellows, the oranges, the reds, and things like that. So Seth Hostetter, oh, no problem, man. All right, everybody, it is Sunday. We got a pile of snow outside that we need to shovel, and I appreciate all you guys watching. I love doing these tests more than anything. I can't do them every week. They take a lot of time, a lot of planning. All this other stuff, clean up and whatever, but I will sprinkle these in occasionally because I absolutely love doing these, and it pushes the knowledge of my company forward and the industry as well too. So Brian McDonough, how do you go about tracking data across all your employees? Do your employees track their own work, or do your lead guys track your work? No, here's the deal. They're rated on 2 things. They are rated on their attendance, which is a time punch, time clock thing that we all control. And they're rated on their hourly job budgets. And every single day, me and the project management team, we sit down in our morning routine. And if Alex clocked in for 10.1 hours and he was on the Smith job site, we make sure that there's a specific sheet within the Smith job site where it says Alex was here and the days of the week. And we say, okay, for this day, he worked 10.1 hours. And we verify with his time punch and then put it into the single source of truth, that project plan there. We do not allow painters to chart their own progress. They give us the information from the job site. We do some overwatch kind of stuff like that. They keep us honest. We keep them honest. What we also do too is every day at 8 a.m., they owe us a project plan, how they're going to get this job done 10% under budget from the start to finish. And then every 3 p.m., they update and basically say on track, off track, any issues they have, things like that. And then every week, I show them where they are in the year with their attendance. Are they, red, yellow, green on the stoplight system? Same thing with jobs, red, yellow, green. They get a weekly update of where they are because data is always different than feelings. Everybody believes they work harder and work more hours than they actually do. We're there to remind them. For the people who do work a bunch of hours, great job. For the people who feel like they work a ton of hours but don't quite get there, we say, hey, here's the hours you're missing. Let's get there. Instead of just work harder, do more stuff, we actually tell them you're actually 15 hours behind. If you work the next Friday and half a Friday next, you're even up on par and ready to go for a raise and a bonus. So data plus feelings. So, all right, everybody, I'm going to keep shoveling and plowing. I appreciate you guys watching. If you got any other questions, you can put them here. Also, I have my email address here. If you want my 17-step standard operating procedure / playbook on how to paint walls in a room like this, my email address is in the show notes here. You can get a hold of me. I'll send that to you for free. I will also send you a link to every other one of my templates and all of my other painting SOPs as well too. So that's Seth Hostetter. Drive time included per job. For job costing, say a job is 45-minute drive and included in the estimate. So there's two options for that based on employment law, Seth. This is it, then I gotta go. If I require them to come to the shop and do work, not they clock in when they get here, stay clocked in for the work, and then stay clocked in for the drive. Standard of my company and standard for employment law is we do in Minnesota, you punch in at the site. You have a free company vehicle, you have a free ride, you can use your own vehicle, you can use that company vehicle to get to the job site, but you punch in at the job site. You do not get paid to commute. Nobody gets paid to commute. I will tell you that. If you are a mid-level vice president or a mid-level manager for Best Buy, Target, 3M in Minnesota, they do not punch you in from your house to the site. You get a salary or you get an hourly wage that starts either at your office or at the job site. So there's a whole bunch of derivations of employment law in there, but I usually go on the little side of, not what's legal, halfway between what's legal and moral, because I could pay the guys from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. That's obviously not fair either. So we find that middle ground where the guys are always compensated fairly for what they do. So, all right, everybody, have a good day. We'll see you guys later.